Good morning to one and all. In today's lectures, we'll discuss about the last part of our ophthalmic preparations, that is, evaluations of ophthalmic formulations. So, as we know, ophthalmic pharmaceuticals, these are the specialized dosage forms which are designed to be instilled into the intraocularly, topically, or periocularly. So they comes directly in contact with our eye. So the proper precautions has to be taken. So the ophthalmic preparations must be extraordinarily pure and free from the physical, chemical as well as biological contaminants and suitably compounded and packed for the installations of the eyes. So these requirements like stability, like a pure chemical, biological contamination avoidance, and other things. So this is the responsibility of each and every person who are working there. So this requirement implies the significant responsibility of the pharmaceutical industry to maintain the GMP as well as it has to follow some SOPs also. Now, when you are talking about the quality assurance, so quality it is the sustainability of the drugs for their desired use. So, if we measure the efficacy, safety, consistency, whatever we have claimed with the label. So, basically, along with that, the strain, purity, and other characteristics also. So, there are various tests are there. So the quality control tests for the ophthalmic preparations are different in different pharmacopoeias like IP, BP or USP. So in these today's lectures we'll discuss about the various pharmacopoeial tests which is carried out for the final formulations of the ophthalmic preparations, because as we know the development of pharmaceutical it is a long process concerning the drug discovery, laboratory testing, animal studies, clinical trials, regulatory registrations are there. So throughout this process, the important thing that we have to follow, that we have to follow the GMP, and once you follow the GMP, obviously we'll achieve the quality of our product. So in today's lectures, we'll discuss about some quality parameters for the ophthalmic pharmaceutical ophthalmic preparations with the help of the pharmacopoeial standards and their specifications. So, what are the universal tests are there for ophthalmic pharmaceuticals? There are four basic tests are there that has to be carried out for all the ophthalmic formulations, like for solution, suspension, ointment, or any. The first thing that is descriptions. So, this particular test is often called as an appearance on specifications. It is a basically qualitative descriptions of the ophthalmic pharmaceuticals. For example, the descriptions of ophthalmic preparations on specifications, they may read the transparent opaque preparations or proper labeling or imprinting with other things. So the descriptions of that particular ophthalmic pharmaceuticals has to be checked prior to the finished product. Means prior to the finished product quality control, these particular descriptions has to be checked. Then identification is there. So the purpose of this particular identification test or the identity test is to verify the identity of each and every raw materials that we are using, mostly for the APIs. So this particular test should be able to discriminate between the compounds of closely related structures. So basically the identifications of our raw materials as well as our API. For that purpose, the identification test has to be carried out. So basically these are tests are carried out under the pre-formulation study. Then assay process is also there. So which determines the strength or the content of the API in our formulations. We call it the content test. So as we know, there are specific monographs are there for each and every what are the APIs are there. So depending upon that monograph, we are performing the assay test, and important to the impurities. So these impurities determine the presence of any component which are not the API or not the excipients of the formulations. So basically the most common type of impurities that are measured is related to substance which are process impurities during the synthesis, during the degradation process, during the manufacturing process. So there are some unwanted materials are present that they have called as a impurities. Now we'll move to the actual quality control test. So these are the four tests that we have to study prior to the or sorry at the initial stage as well as at the final products also. So QC testing or the quality control testings of ophthalmic pharmaceuticals is an essential activity so that we can ensure that whatever the safety and efficacy of that particular ophthalmic products have been maintained and it complies with the specifications which are specified in any pharmacopoeia like IP, BP or USB. So apart from that, the second or other tests are there that the quality control parameters for the pharmaceutical ophthalmic preparation. So these are the five basic quality control tests that has to be passed before moving for the further testing like a endotoxin test is there, clarity test is there, sterility test is there. But before moving to those tests, I just want to talk about these some parameters that has to be considered because in the introductory part also we have discussed how these particular parameters will affect on our formulations or how these particular parameters are very much important in final or the proper quality product point of views. So we have discussed regarding the pH. The pH of the ophthalmic pharmaceutical is very important. As we know, the normal tears have the pH about 7 to 7.4 and they possess some buffer capacity. So there are some formulations, ophthalmic drugs are there like some alkaloids are there. So they are weakly acidic and they have only weak buffer capacity. So where only 1 to 2 drops of solutions which containing them are added to the eyes and the buffer actions of the tears is usually adequate to raise the pH and prevent the discomforts. In other hand, or in some cases, the pH will be varies between the 3 to 8.5 also. So mostly pilocarpine hydrochlorides and some epinephrine drugs also. They are more acidic and overtake the buffer capacity of the lacrimal fluids. So ideally, an ophthalmic solutions, as we have already discussed, that should have the same pH as well as the same isotonicity values as the lacrimal fluid. But basically, this is not usually possible because, as we have discussed, the pH of our lacrimal fluids or the tears is about 7.4, and at pH 7.4, many drugs are not appreciably soluble in the water. Also, many drugs are chemically unstable at the pH levels, at these particular pH levels. So, this instability is more marked at the high temperatures during heat solutions also. So, for this reason, we have to select some proper buffer system. So, the buffer system should be selected that is nearest to the physiological pH of 7.4 and which does not cause us any precipitations of the drug uh, or its rapid deterioration also. So the final pH of the solutions it often can be compromised because many ophthalmic drugs have the limited solubility and the stability at desired pH of 7.4. So buffers or the pH adjusting agents or the vehicles can be added to adjust and stabilize the pH. So the buffer that are included to minimize any change in pH during the storage of the live drug. So this can be result from mostly absorbed carbon dioxide from the air uh, or from some hydroxyl ions from the glass containers also. So basically the pH plays very important role because the change in pH that can affect the solubility as well as the stability of our drugs. So it is more important to minimize the fluctuations in pH. I have shared one example in last lectures also. I have stored one batch which is having the basic pH, but when we start filling in the next day, the pH will be drastically drop out at towards the acidic pH. So these fluctuations we have to maintain. So the buffer system we have to design sufficient to maintain the pH throughout the expected shelf life of the products. But again the same thing, but with the low buffer capacity, when the ophthalmic solution are instilled into the eyes, the buffer systems of the tears will rapidly bring the pH of the solution back to the normal range. So that precautions has to be takes place. So low concentration of buffer salts are mostly used to prepare the buffers of low buffer capacity. So the important thing, the pH of the ophthalmic pharmaceutical we have to determine carefully, and we have to adjust it with a proper pH adjusting agent. So depending upon the drug or depending upon the solubility, this particular pH will be the varies. But we have to take the precautions that there should not be a maximum fluctuations in a pH. So the second thing, second important factor or the parameter that we have to consider, that is the isotonicity. Same parameter that we have also considered in our parental formulations also. So as we know, isotone or the isotonicity, that means equal to, means it is said that if a solution is said to be isotonic when its effective osmol concentration is same as that of the another solutions. Okay, so that is called the isotonic solutions. So we can say the solutions on either side of the cell membranes are isotonic if the concentrations of the solute molecules outside the cell is equal to the concentrations of solute molecules inside the cell. So in this case, obviously that particular cells neither be swells or not be shrinks because of there is no concentration gradient will be present. We can say the concentrations at the both the sides are equal. Remember the examples of RBCs. I will not go in detail about that, but why isotonicity is very important. So, as we know, and as already we have discussed, the eye can tolerate tonicities which is equivalent range of 0.6 to uh, 0.6 to 2% of the NaCS without discomfort. So, that acidonicity has to be maintained. So some isotonic adjusters are there like sodium chloride, sodium nitrate, or sodium sulfate that can be commonly used or can commonly used to neutralize the tonicity. So there are some times when we require hypertonic ophthalmic solutions. So so we can add some auxiliary agents to require or to increase the tonicity also. So solutions that are isotonics with the tears are mostly preferred. So that is which are equivalent to 0.9% of the sodium chloride solutions, which is ideal for comfort and should be used when possible. So it should not produce some discomfort or the irritancy. So that isotonicity must be equal to 0.9% of the sodium chloride solution. So that precautions has to be taken. Another one important factors or the parameter that we have to consider is the viscosity. Now, we have already discussed about the viscosity in much more detail in while we are discussing about the thickening agents. So, viscosity, as we know, which is the resistance to the solution flow. But in this particular ophthalmic formulations, we don't provide, we don't want to provide some resistance. Basically, the viscosity plays very much important role in ophthalmic formulations to increase the contact time. So when we are instilling any ophthalmic ointments or any suspensions or any solutions, they must have specific viscosity so that can be repeated, so that they can remain for the longer contact time in our eye sac. So we get a higher viability, and for that purpose the viscosity is very much important in ophthalmic preparations, because if you are considering the solutions as well as the suspension formulations, once you instill the formulations, they may get ooze out or they may get drain out from the corner of the eye. So to avoid that, the proper viscosity must be there. So there are some viscosity enhancers are also there, so that we can incorporate viscosity enhancers like hydroxymethyl cellulose are there. Then methyl cellulose is there. Polyvinyl alcohol is also there. So these particular viscoizers that enables the formulations to remain in the eyes. So they will increase the viscosity and they will increase the contact time of our formulations. But again the same thing, they are given the typical concentrations for the viscosity enhancers which is approved for the use. Basically CMC is there, hydroxy HPMC is there. So it should be in between 0.5 to up to 2.5%. So in that range only we can use this viscosity modifier, because the higher viscosity also may leads or also may affect the different conditions also. So the most common viscosity or the viscosity desired in ophthalmic formulations, which will be in range between the 20 to 25 to 50 psi. 25 to 50 psi viscosity can be tolerable, or we can say it can be acceptable. So basically, as we are discussing about the viscolizer, so the actual quantity or the actual concentrations that will required for the to produce this 25 to 50 psi viscosity, which is based upon the grade that we are using. So if you are considering methyl cellulose, so 20 centipoise is used, so 1% solution will be created. So likewise, and if you are using the methyl cellulose 400, we have to use 0.25% solution. So that will be the depends upon the grades that we are selecting for the formulation purpose. So this is the viscosity, which is also plays a very important role here. Then therapeutic efficacy also we have to check. So basically, so whatever the API that we are using, it should be present in the most therapeutically effective form. Means its polymorphic form must be most effective, and this goal must often be compromised for the reasons for solubility as well as the stability of the active ingredients. So, for example, many drugs are most active in their undissociated forms, and they are least soluble in specific form. So they may also be less stable at the pH value. So that's why whatever the efficacy, therapeutic efficacy that they have provided, so they must be present in the most therapeutically effective form. So that has to be considered while selecting the APIs also. Also the compatibility with the eyes has to be checked. So obviously whatever the ophthalmic formulations, it should be free from the chemical or the any agent or the we can call it the particulate count, which will causes the irritations, toxicity or the allergy to the sensitive membrane and tissue of the eyes. There are some excipients also, preservatives there, antioxidants are also there. So they should be added with the care, because if in a more concentrations they are present, or many patients or many persons they are sensitive to the some preservatives or some antioxidants. So before adding this, we have to check the compatibility of that particular formulation, means API as well as the excipients with the eye. So these are the basic tests that we have to consider. Means pH we have to consider, isotonicity we have to consider, viscosities, their therapeutic efficacy is there, as well as the compatibility of the eyes is also to be considered before the formulations of any ophthalmic formulations. Now we actually move to the tests which are performed on a final or the finished quality or the finished product quality control test that we are going to discuss regarding the solutions as well as on ophthalmic ointment formulations. So evaluation test for the finished parenteral products. So importantly, ophthalmic solutions असेल तुमचं, ophthalmic ointment असेल तुमचं किंवा ophthalmic gel असेल, it should be free from the foreign particles, and this is generally accomplished by the various methods that we are going to discuss under this following test, like a sterility test is there, clarity test is there, liquor test is there, metal particles in ophthalmic ointment test will be there. So if you see these tests, these are the same tests that we have carried out for our parenteral formulations, but as per the USP, as per the British Pharmacopoeia or as per the Indian Pharmacopoeia, the guidelines and the specifications are varies for the ophthalmic formulations. So today we'll discuss about all those tests, their procedures and their specifications also. So first we'll talk about the sterility test. So which method we are using to check the sterility for the parental formulations? So if you remember the test that we have performed, there are two methods, direct inoculation method and membrane filtration methods are there. So that the same test here we are adopting for the ophthalmic formulations. So basically sterility that means there should not be presence of any viable microbial contaminations. So sterility is very much important for our ophthalmic formulations like parenteral formulations, because whatever the formulations are there, they are comes in direct contact with our eyes, and eye is a very delicate parts of our body. And if any foreign particles are there or if any microorganisms are present there, so obviously there may be causing some infections. We have discussed regarding preservative efficacy test. So discuss about the preservative efficacy test. In that test, mentions if Pseudomonas aeruginosa microbes will be present, so there may be causes the permanent loss of the vision also. So the sterility test is very much important in ophthalmic point of view. So if any contaminated ophthalmic formulations will be there and that we are instilled into the eyes, so there will be result in infections, and in severe cases we can lose which will cause us a blindness also. So therefore the ophthalmic formulations must be prepared in a proper sterile conditions using the aseptic techniques, that the same techniques that we have mentioned in our parenteral formulations. Obviously the packing is also carried out. So these are the two tests, two basic methods for the sterility testing. The same method that we have adopted for the ophthalmic formulations, that is direct inoculations method and membrane filtration methods. So basically, with the cultural media that we are using, if you remember, there are two cultural media, the same cultural media that we are using, soybean casein digest media and FTM, that is a fluid thioglycolate medium that is used. So the process is also same as we have mentioned. So direct inoculation method, it involves the direct introductions of the product test samples into the culture media, and you have to incubate. If you are using the soybean casein digest media, you have to incubate at 20 degrees Celsius, 20 to 25 degrees Celsius. And if you are using the thioglycolate medium, you have to incubate 30 to 35 degrees Celsius for 7 days. The same process are there for the sterility testing. So in a direct inoculation, that is a simple method. Whatever the samples are there, whatever the formulations are there, which are directly inoculated on a culture media, either soybean casein digest medium or either fluid thioglycolate medium. In a membrane filtrations, this particular membrane filtration is used whenever the products can be filterable, or mostly aqueous solutions, the suspensions are there. So in that case, we are using this membrane filtration method. So we have to use the cellulose acetate membrane, which is having the pore size approximately equal to 0.45 nanometer micrometers, whose retain the microorganisms. So there is a less chance to transfer the microorganisms into the final filtered product. So after passing through that particular membrane, we have to provide the washing the filter with the fluid that to remove the inhibitory property, and then we have to transfer the membrane into the this appropriate culture media, and then you have to incubate. And after incubations, you have to observe under the microscope, and you have to analyze that particular membrane. That is the same method that we are using for the parenteral formulations. But when we are carried out the direct inoculations method, so we have to transfer the quantity of the preparations to be examined, which is prescribed. Means like suppose if it is a less than 1 ml, the whole content of each container has to be transferred. If it is more than, so if it is between 1 to 40 ml, half the content of each containers that we have to transfer. If it is solid, means the semi-solid we can call it. If it is less than 50 mg, you have to use the whole containers, then 50 mg and more, but less than 300 mg you have to use the half of that particular formulations. Suppose antibiotics liquids are there, you are going to use the 1 ml. So likewise, they are there. These are the quantity they have mentioned in specific USP as well as in British Pharmacopoeia. They have given the minimum quantity that is to be used for each of medium. So if you are using the soybean casein digest media, or if you are using the fluid thioglycolate medium, so depending upon that, the quantity of product that is to be examined is varies. So again the same thing, if there is the soluble solids are there, if it is aqueous solutions are there, if it is the ointments and the creams are there. So depending upon that, the values will be the varies, and at the end you have to carry out the inoculations and your incubations, and then you have to check the microscopic evidence of the microbial growth. If the material is being turbid, so that means there is a presence or absence of the microbial growth that has to be carried out. So that is same method जशी आपण पॅरेंटलला काढली होती की आफ्टर इन्क्युबेशन आफ्टर 14 डेज मध्ये तुम्हाला चेक करा त्याच्यामध्ये कुठे टर्बिडिटी ऑकर होते की नाही. The turbidity occurs, that means there are some microorganisms are present, and if turbidity will not occur, that means there should not that particular formulations is which does not contain any foreign particles. So this is sterility testing. So already we have discussed, so I will not go in details. The second one is the clarity testing. So which is also same as our clarity test that we are using for parenteral formulations. So the ophthalmic solutions that must be free from foreign particles, and as we know, which will be accomplished by the filtration process. Also, sorry. Also, this filtration process will help to achieve the clarity of our solutions. So basically, there are some clarifying agents are there. So these clarifying agents uh, that improve the aqueous drug solubility and also compatible with the vehicles which are used for the ophthalmic liquid formulations. Polysorbate 20 and polysorbate 80s are there, so which are acting as the clarifying agents are there. So there will be the visual inspections. So the same way with a black and white background with the proper light provide reflected light will be there. So black and white background that is used for the visual inspections, and instrumental methods are there, that is utilizing the principle of light scattering or the light absorptions and the electrical resistance to obtain the particle size as well as the particle count of which are the particle presents in a formulations. So these are the same method that can be used. The particulate matters in specific formulations. So particulate matter which consists of the particles that will not dissolve in the solutions and which are other than the gas bubbles that are unintentionally present on the products. So particulate matters can come from any sources. There are many sources are there. So you're doing the processing or during the during the manufacturing or during the packing also there are many sources are there through which the particulate matters can be occurs. So limits for the ophthalmic pharmaceuticals they have given or they have specified in each and every pharmacopoeia means the number of particles which are present in specific ml that they have given, and these tests we are going to perform in actual practical also. So according to the USP, this test is suitable for the mostly ophthalmic solutions. So as we know, foreign particles or the particular matters, these are the particular matter which consist of randomly sourced or the extraneous substances which are other than the bubble gases that cannot be quantified by the chemical analysis. So ophthalmic solutions should be easily free from the particles that can be observed on visual inspections. So for every ophthalmic solutions for which the monograph includes the test of particulate matters is subject to the particulate matter limit test for the test which is being applied unless otherwise that are specified in an individual monograph. So when higher limits are appropriate, they will be specified in individual monographs. So ophthalmic preparations, the suspensions, uh, emulsions or the gels, these are exempt from this particular requirement as as our medical devices. So this particularly particulate matter test, which is not applicable for suspensions, emulsions, or the gels. So how to refer the specific monographs when a question of test applicability is occurs. So USP that suggested two tests, LOPC and MPC. LOPC that is the light obstruction particulate counts and microscopic particle count. These are the two tests that is used for to determine the particulate counts. So basically, light obstruction particle counts and the microscopic particle count, these are the tests for the determinations of the particulate matters in ophthalmic solutions. So first, light obstruction particle count. This method it will analyze the products using the light obstruction particle or particulate analyzers. So according to USP, this test is applied to the ophthalmic solutions including solutions which constitute from the sterile water or sterile solid for which a test of particulate matter is specified in individual monograph. So this particular test which counts the suspended particles that are solid or a liquid. So according to USP, the ophthalmic solutions which meets the requirements of the test if the average number of particles present in a unit which are tested does not exceeds the appropriate value listed in this particular table. So this is the USP limits for the particulate matters by the using the light obstruction particle count test. So nominal values, the diameter of our particle if 10 microns only 50 particles per ml and particles which are equal to or less than 25 micron only 5 particles per ml. So this is the limit they have given. Second test microscopic particle count test. So this method filters the product through 0.8 micron gray graded filters. Then the filter is then counted microscopically at 100x optical rotations to determine the number of particles. So there are some articles which cannot be tested meaningfully by light obstructions. So in this case, individual monograph that clearly specify that only microscopic particle count test is to be performed. So this microscopic particle count test that enumerates subvisible essentially solid particulate matters in ophthalmic solutions after the collections on a microporous membrane. There are some ophthalmic solutions or some such solutions that do not filter radially because of their high viscosity. They are exempted from analysis using the microscopic test. When performing the microscopic test, do not attempt to size or enumerate the amorphous semi-liquids or the if it is not specified in monographs. So otherwise, morphologically indistinct materials that have an appearance of stains or discoloration of the membrane surface will occur. So these materials which show little or no surface relief and present a gelatinous or a film-like appearance. So because in solutions this material consists of the units on the order of 1 micron or less, which may be counted only after the aggregations or the deformation of the analytical membrane. According to USP, the ophthalmic solutions, if meet the requirements of the test, if the average number of particles which are present in the unit test does not exceed as per the table, exceed their appropriate values listed in table. So here they have given volume, nominal volume and number of particles. So 10 micron size particles, it should not be more than 50. 20 micron particles, it should not be 5 particles per ml, and 50 micron particles should not be more than 2. So that particle size count has to be carried out with the help of MPC test, that is particulate matters uh, so LOPC and MPC, that is light obstruction particle count test and microscopic particle count test, that is to be carried out for the specific ophthalmic formulations. Then these are the tests that they have mentioned for the specific ointments and collapsible tubes. Collapsible tubes we'll discuss later on. Today we'll discuss about the test on ointments. So basically, test on ointments. So the same particle size, metal particles, liquor test, uniformity of weight, bacterial endotoxin tests are there. So particle size. So basically, this particular particle size test which is suitable for the eye ointment. So according to the IP, we have to gently spread a small quantity of the eye ointment as a thin layer on a microscopic slides and we have to scan under the microscope, mostly corresponding to 10 microgram of the solid phase, and scan at least 50 representative fields like particle counts we have measured for the suspensions, as well as in semi-solid also we have measured the particle size with the help of a microscopic method. The same methods here that were adopted, and the limit they have given, not more than 20 particles have a maximum dimension greater than 25 micron, and not more than 10 particles which have the maximum dimension which is greater than 50 micron, and none of the particle has the maximum dimension which is greater than 100 micron. So the limit for passing the particle size, there should not be more than 20 particles which is having the maximum dimensions which is greater than 25 micron. 10 particles have the maximum dimension greater than 50 micron, and none or not a single particles have the maximum dimension greater than 100 micron. So mostly all the particles are below 20 micron, 25 micron range. So that has to be considered for the ophthalmic ointments. Then metal particle in ophthalmic ointments are there. So for that purpose, you have to exclude the You have to exclude as completely as practicable the content of 10 tubes individually into a separate, clear, flat bottom 60 mm petri dish that are free from the scratches. Then you have to cover the dishes and you have to heat at 85 degrees Celsius for 2 hours. So we can increase the temperature slightly if necessary to ensure that the fully fluid state is obtained. What you have to take place? You have to take the 10 tubes, you have to individually separate them into the 60 petri plate, the petri dish, which is we don't have any scratches. You have to provide the heat of 85 degrees Celsius for 2 hours to get the fully fluid state that we can obtain. Then, taking precautions against the disturbing the melted samples, then we have to allow each to cool to room temperatures and to solidify. Now, you have to remove the covers and invert each petri dish on a stage of the micrometer. You have to adjust 30 magnifications and equipped with the eyepiece micrometer disc that has been calibrated with at the magnifications, and then you have to examine the entire bottom of the petri dish for the metal particles. So the number of metal particles that are 15 micron or larger in any dimension, that is you have to measure. So the requirements to meet, if the total number of such particles in all 10 tubes which is does not exceeds than 50, and if not more than one tube which is found such a 8 particles, then only we can say that our ointment which is free from the metal particles. So if these results are not obtained, means the total 10 tubes मध्ये 50 पेक्षा more particles नसले पाहिजेत आणि एका ट्यूब मध्ये it should not be more than 8 particles. सिंपल प्रोसेस आहे. फर्स्ट जे काही तुमची ऑइंटमेंट असेल ते पेट्री डिश मध्ये पूर्ण जेवढं आहे फॉर्म्युलेशन तेवढं स्क्वीज आउट करून घ्यायचं आहे. देन त्याला हीट करायचं आहे 85 डिग्री सेल्सिअसला सो दॅट इट कॅन बी मेल्ट. You have to cool them. You have to remove the cover, and you have to invert that petri plates, and you have to check under the microscope. So the metal particles that are 50 micron and you have to measure. So it should not be more than 50 on a total 10 tubes, and it should not be more than 8 particles in a single individual tubes. So if these results are not obtained, you have to repeat the test for 20 additional tubes. Now the requirements are met if the total number of metal particles that are of 50 micron size or on a larger size in any dimensions it does not exceed 150 in all 30 tubes. First 10 plus 20, that is 30 tubes are there, and not more than 3 of the tubes are found to contain more than 8 such particles. Okay, so this is the limit for the metal particles in ophthalmic ointments. Metal particles which are present in ophthalmic ointments. So this is a very simple process. First thing, what you have to carry it out, you have to take the 10 tubes, you have to extrude individual tube into 10 different petri plate. Then you have to heat them with the help of 85 degrees Celsius for the 2 hours, and if you can increase the heat also if necessary. So we will get the fully fluid state. Then you have to cool them, you have to remove the cover and invert petri dish, and you have to observe under the 30 magnifications in a with the eyepiece micrometer, and you have to check the particles which are present. For the passing purpose, out of 10 tubes, not a single tube which is having more than 8 particles, and the total particles which should not be more than 50. If it is not passed, you have to check on other 20. Now out of 30, total particle count should not be more than 150 in all the 30 tubes, and not 3 tubes which contain more than 8 such particles. So that you have to consider for the metal particles in ophthalmic formulations. Then Likert test is there for the ophthalmic tubes. For that purpose, you have to select the 10 tubes which are properly sealed. Then you have to thoroughly clean and dry the exterior surface of each tube with absorbent cloth. Then you have to place the tubes in horizontal positions on a sheets of absorbent blotting paper in a oven, and we have to maintain the temperatures of 60 degree for 8 hours. So no significant leakage occurs during or at the completion of the test. So now if leakage is observed from one but more than one of the tubes, repeat the test for the 20 additional tubes and observe for from the first 10 tube test, or if leakage is observed from the not more than one of the 30 test tube. So one 30 पैकी एखाद्या कोणत्या तर तुमची टेस्ट फेल होते. तर सिंपल टेस्ट आहे जे सील केलेली तुमची टेस्ट ट्यूब्स आहे, सॉरी नॉट टेस्ट ट्यूब, जी ऑप्थॅल्मिक ट्यूब्स आहे ती तुम्हाला ब्लॉटिंग पेपरवर घ्यायच्या प्रॉपरली क्लीन करून आणि त्याला तुम्हाला ओव्हन प्रोव्हाइड करायचं 60 डिग्री सेल्सिअस फॉर 8 आवर्स आणि त्याच्यामध्ये कुठे लिकेज आहे का तुम्हाला चेक करायचं. सिंपल टेस्ट इज देअर. if one or more than one tubes are having the leakage, so you have carried out for the additional 20 tubes, and then if no leakage is observed for the first 10 tubes tested, or if leakage is observed from not more than one of 30 test tubes, then we can say we can meet the requirements. Then uniformity of weight. So uniformity contains is measured. So basically, we have to select the sample of 10 field containers and remove any labeling that might be altered in a weight while removing the contents of the containers. Then clean and dry the outer surface of the containers and weigh each containers. Remove quantitatively the contents from each containers. If necessary, cut open the container and wash each empty container with suitable solvents, and taking care to ensure that the closures and other parts of the containers are retained. So try and again weight of each empty containers together with its parts which may have been removed, and difference between the two weights is the net weight of the content of the container. The simple method is there. In filled containers gadget, you have to remove labeling or if any materials are there. Then you have to clean the outer surface of the containers and weight each of the containers. That means you have to remove the quantity of the content from each containers. You can use any suitable solvents, or you can cut open the containers and wash with suitable solvents. So during that closures and other parts of the containers are retained to the containers, then you have to carry out the difference between the two weights that will provide the net weight of the contents of the containers. Now the important test is here. Last test, that is the bacterial endotoxin test is there. So endotoxins, as we know, these are the toxins which cannot diffuse through the bacterial cell walls and are retained within the bacteria. So basically these are released only when the cells are died and start disintegrating. So BET, bacterial endotoxin test, that already we have discussed with the CRAB techniques we have discussed, right? So BET measures the concentrations of bacterial endotoxin that may be present in the sample or in the articles to which the test is applied using the lysate, which are derived from the hemolympus cells of amoebocytes of the horseshoe crab, Humulus polyphemus. So LAL test, like a LAL test, this particular bacterial endotoxin test is performed. So according to the IP, these are the following methods that can be used to monitor the endotoxin concentrations in a product official in a pharmacopoeia and to determine whether the product complies with the limits which are specified in a monograph or not. So according to, so there is a 5 test. Gel clotting limit test is there, semi-quantitative gel clotting method is there, kinetic turbidimetric method is there, kinetic chromogenic method is there, and endpoint chromogenic methods are there. So in IP, monograph includes a test for the bacterial endotoxin without mentioning method. So the test is carried out during the first one, gel plot time method that is used, and any one of the other four methods may be employed as an alternative method, which provides yield results of the equivalent reliability with the preparations under examinations. Then consistent with the IP, we have to carry out the procedures in receptacles like tubes, vials, or wells of the microtitrate. Micro plates are there. So into each of the chosen receptacle, you have to add appropriate volume of negative control. You have to add the control standard endotoxin. You have to add the solutions in bacterial endotoxin, then test solutions and positive control. So these are to provide and at a specific interval that will permit the reading of each result. You have to add to each receptacle an equal volume of appropriate concentrated lysate unless a single test vials are used. Then you have to mix the samples and lysate mixtures gently and place in an incubating devices like a water bath or a heating block, and we can record in the time at which the receptacles are so placed. Then you have to incubate at 37 degrees Celsius for 60 to 62 minutes. Remove the receptacle and examine for the content carefully, and you have to determine the if the positive reaction is characterized by the formation of the firm gel that retain its integrity when inverted to the 180 degree Celsius, 180 degree in one smooth motions, you have to record the result as a positive. A negative result is characterized by the absence of such a gel or by the formation of the viscous gel that does not maintain its integrity. That we have to record as a negative result. Then we have to handle the receptacles with care to avoid the subjecting them to unwanted vibrations as a false negative observations may result. Then consistent with the IP, we calculate the geometric mean endpoint concentration of the solutions of series B and C by using the this particular formula. Geometric mean endpoint concentration is equal to antilog of summations of E divided by F, where summation of E is equal to sum of the log endpoint concentrations of the series of dilutions which used and divided by number of replicate test tubes are there. So this average given the estimated lysate sensitivity, which must be lies between the 0.5 to 2 angstrom or 2 lambda. So the possibility of the interference with the bacterial endotoxin test, there are some factors to be considered. So for validation of these tests, the test preparations that should not be inhibit or enhance the reactions because it will can say it will interfere with the test interpretations also. So the allowable dilutions level or the maximum valid dilutions of any formulation or this particular bacterial introduction test, which is depends on the concentrations of the product endotoxin and as well as the lysate sensitivity. So it will depends upon one formula. Maximum valid dilutions is equal to endotoxin limit into concentrations of test solutions divided by lambda, where lambda is the level sensitivity of the lysate. So from that we can achieve the maximum valid dilutions. So this particular bacterial endotoxin test, which is used to check whether any endotoxic substance is present in ophthalmic formulations or not. So this is all regarding the evaluations of ophthalmic preparations. So first thing, universal test, that is our descriptions, identifications, assays and impurities. Then another factors or the parameters that we have to consider while totally while in a finished product, that is pH, isotonicity, viscosity, therapeutic efficacy, and the compatibility of with the eyes. And last one, these are the quality control tests, which are as similar as our parental formulations like a stability test, clarity test, Likert test, metal particular test, and ophthalmic ointments. Bacterial endotoxin tests are there. So stability test, by two method, direct inoculation method, and membrane filtration method. Clarity test, which is also the same against the background, or some clarifying agents are there so that we can use instrumental methods are there. Particles count, that is very much important method that we have to consider. Either microscopically or either LOPC method will be there. Light obscuration particle count or microscopic particle counts method is there. Microscopic particle count method is there. So these are the two basic methods that can be used for the counting the particles present in a ophthalmic formulations, either in a suspension, either in a ophthalmic ointments or in ophthalmic solutions also. So these are the two important tests are there apart from the stability and the clarity. Along with that, we have discussed regarding the uniformity, particle size or metal particles. This is very much important test in ophthalmic ointment formulations. Liquor test for our collapsible tubes is also there, and last one is the bacterial endotoxin test. So these are the quality control tests that we are performing for the ophthalmic formulations. So we stop here. From tomorrow we will start with the new topic. Thank you.